Summer is a time when people take breaks. Breaks from work, breaks from school, sometimes breaks from therapy. But that doesn't mean it's a time where people don't need structure and support. In fact, summer can be a time when we need it most, especially for children. Parents often tell me, I'm nervous, I don't have anything lined up for my child this summer, or I signed them up for camp just so they'd have something. There's an unspoken truth in those comments that without some form of external structure, something begins to unravel. And psychoanalysis actually gives us a way to understand why. Let's talk about Freud's tripartite model of the mind. Now, you're probably thinking, what the heck is that? But you know the words, the id, the ego, and the superego. Freud thought of this as the architecture of the self, the psychological structure that organizes how we feel, how we act, and how we make sense of the world. The id is all instinct and impulse, pleasure seeking and immediate. It wants what it wants when it wants it. The superego is the internalized voice of morality, rules, expectations that are often borrowed from our parents, religion, and culture. And the ego is the part that navigates reality. It tries to strike a balance between what we want and what's possible or appropriate. This is where summer gets interesting because when routines fall away, the ego has to work harder. There are fewer external limits, fewer reminders of time, and so the id starts to emerge more freely. That's why you might see impulsivity go up, screen time battles, moods that feel unpredictable, a kind of untethered restlessness that grows when structure fades. And it's not just about keeping kids busy, it's about understanding that structure is part of the psychic scaffolding that helps a child feel contained. Not controlled, but contained. This is also where the superego comes in, but not the harsh, punitive kind that many of us have internalized. I'm talking about the benevolent superego, the one that says, you've had enough for the day, time to rest, or we can have fun and still stick to a rhythm. It's the voice of a kind, firm, reliable inner parent, and summer is actually a perfect time to help that voice emerge. Sure, camp can be one way to provide that structure, but you don't necessarily need a formalized activity to help your child in this way. Some of the most powerful interventions are quiet, they're reflective, and they're relational. Start with rituals that give rhythm to the day, a consistent wake-up routine, predictable meal times with shared conversation, transitions marked with connection, not just logistics, screen boundaries that are framed around restoration, not just control. But beyond rhythm, summer is a window for deeper work. Try to observe, not just manage. When a child suddenly asks to go to the park, for example, but then pauses or changes their mind, that's not nothing. That pause is data. You might say, I noticed you hesitated before asking to ride to the park with your friend. What do you think made you pause? This isn't about prying. It's about making the unconscious just a little more conscious. Because here's what we know from psychoanalytic work. Behavior is communication, and children, like all of us, are sometimes guided by parts of the self they don't fully understand. Signal anxiety, for instance, can show up as avoidance or irritability, such as a child exclaiming, I don't want to go on this family vacation, or aggravation when you ask them to put their phone away and be present. And often, this is a clue that something else is behind the wheel, steering from the shadows, something unresolved, something tender. That I don't want to go may not be simple oppositionality. That protest might be a signal of anxiety, of conflict, of something deeper. Maybe fear of change, fear of separation, or even memories tied to the destination. Rather than assuming resistance is defiance, try asking your child, what do you think makes this feel hard for you? It might not change what you do, but it can change how you do it, how you show up for your child on this trip, what you encourage them to think about, what you keep an eye out for. Summer also brings family dynamics into full view. With everyone at home more often, long-standing tensions can surface. Friction between siblings, reactivity from one parent, withdrawal from another. These are the moments to take stock, not just react. If your household starts to feel off, ask yourself, who's being recruited into what roles right now? What patterns are being repeated? What might my child be trying to express through his or her behavior? These are the questions that move us from behavior management to actual insight, from reacting to responding, from authority to attunement. This is the kind of work I help parents do in Pathformers, not just managing behavior, but understanding it, not just tips, but real developmentally grounded tools. And right now, we're offering a summer special to make that work more accessible. 50% off our most popular courses for the first 100 families through July 15th, and 25% off through August 15th. No subscription, just lifetime access, created by a child psychologist and psychoanalyst, me, for the moments when generic advice just isn't enough. Let this be the summer where structure doesn't disappear, it deepens.